Hello, my name is Jennifer O'Brien. I am one of 2 academic skills specialists at Brock International Services. Today we will discuss note-taking, one of the most essential academic skills in university. Do you ever feel like this guy? When we take notes, often we do not know where to begin and are left feeling overwhelmed. Note-taking has many benefits for you. Taking notes helps us to recognize what information is important, reduces the important information into a shortened and more accessible form, and shows you how important points are linked. All students, both domestic and international, benefit from note-taking skills. However, international students might often struggle with them because the way we organize our information is not universal. In certain home countries, students may have a different way of thinking and presenting information. In Canada and the US, information is presented in a linear fashion, with a clear beginning, middle, and end. In some other home countries, information is presented in other fashions, such as cyclical, where the content is presented in a circle without a clear start or end. As there are many benefits to note-taking, there are also many styles of note-taking. You may have noticed that beyond the fact that each system organizes information, they are actually quite different. Naturally, we all gravitate towards one style. If your note-taking resembles any of those depicted in numbers 1 to 5, congrats, you currently use one of the 5 top note-taking systems. Alternatively, if your notes resemble number 6, you would benefit from using a more organized manner. Today, we are going to go through the top 5 note-taking systems, discussing what they look like, pros and cons of each, and finally, when they are the most effective. The first note-taking system we will look at is called the CORNELL method. This is a systematic format for condensing and organizing notes through the use of sections. As you can see, this method divides your page into 3 major sections: a slim left-hand side, a larger right-hand side, and the bottom. The idea of this method is that you take your notes as usual in the right-hand side, leaving a space between new ideas. After you finish taking notes in the right-hand side, you review each section, separated by the skipped lines, and come up with a key term from the passage or an extension question to put alongside the passage in the left-hand side. You will do this for each separate passage. Once you've completed the left-hand column, you'll review all the notes you've made and come up with a short summary of 2 to 3 sentences, placing it at the bottom. The idea here is that weeks or months later, when you are reviewing or searching for information, you can use the summary or bottom portion to pinpoint the exact note you want to look at. Furthermore, you can use the quick reference terms or the questions in the left-hand column to pinpoint a specific piece of information in your notes. This method is great for both lecture and self-study, as the template is conducive for review. Overall, this method will save you time, but it can be difficult to learn at first, as you must be diligent in keeping up with completing the left-hand side and summary components. As a quick reference, here's a reminder of the general structure of the CORNELL method. The bigger right-hand side is for your notes. Each major or new idea should be separated by skipping a line. The slimmer left-hand side is done afterwards and is used to label each idea and draw out bigger ideas. The next method is the outline method. This is an organized and structured note-taking method using dashes or indented outlines. This is the most traditional format for note-taking and is oftentimes the format used when creating an outline for an essay. Similar to the CORNELL method, this method can be useful in both lecture and self-study. To use this method, you organize information by placing major points farthest to the left and indent each more specific point to the right. As you can see in the example, body language is the major category, and thus the closest to the left-hand margin. Movement, facial expressions, gestures, and postures are the next largest categories and are indented once from the left. Finally, specific details about each are indented once more. You may be wondering how it is possible to apply this method in lecture. However, when the professor presents information in a linear fashion and through the use of headings and subheadings in their presentation, this method works quite well. Due to the spacing of this method, the content is very clearly organized and relationships are evident. The drawbacks are specific to using it in lecture, meaning that if a person presenting the information does not do so in a linear fashion or does so very quickly, it can be difficult to implement this method. The charting method is the third note-taking method. This method organizes your notes using tables in which columns are labeled with specific heading. This method is most useful in self-study rather than in lecture. It can be used in lecture, but only works for certain situations where you have a really good idea of the major categories ahead of time. To use this method, you must first determine the organizational categories. Set up your paper by columns headed by these categories, and then you are able to record the information, words, phrases, or main ideas, in the appropriate category. Overall, this method reduces the amount of writing needed and provides an easy review for study of facts and relationships. The drawbacks are that you need to have a good idea about the information before you begin note-taking, as some setup is required, and as such, it can be difficult to implement. The next note-taking method we will discuss will be the mind map method. This method uses comprehension and concentration skills and relates each fact or idea to every other fact or idea. To use this method, you simply place the topic of the day in a circle in the middle and make branches out to bubbles with main ideas related to your topic, making smaller branches from the main ideas outwards. As you move outwards, the information switches from being broad to more detailed and specific. This note-taking method is useful for self-study and does not work well in lecture. It is a great tool for brainstorming ideas and organizing your thoughts. It is very easy to make changes to, little thinking is needed, and relationships can be seen visually. Drawbacks include that this method can easily become chaotic, making it difficult to find important information quickly. Finally, it can be difficult to distinguish content from major points to facts. Using different colors may be useful in mitigating these navigational issues. The final method we will cover is the sentence method. This method is often used if you are new to note-taking due to its simplicity. In this method, you simply write down every thought, fact, or topic on a separate line, numbering as you progress. While the example shows each idea being only one line total, an idea may take up to 2 or 3 lines, depending on the size of your writing. This method does not utilize full sentences. This method can be used in both lecture and self-study. However, it is not recommended for the latter. This method is beneficial in lectures where the presenter moves very quickly and you are trying to get down as much information as possible. It is slightly more organized than a paragraph due to the numbering system and provides you with a lot of information. The drawbacks are that you cannot distinguish major or minor points from the numbered sequence, and it is difficult to edit without having to rewrite as there is no extra spacing. Now that we have covered the 5 major note-taking strategies, we will look at some general best practices. When possible, use abbreviations to speed up your note-taking. However, be careful when doing so. It is important to use commonly known abbreviations such as the 3 circles in a triangle, which represents therefore. The reasoning for this is that when it comes time to review, you do not want to be questioning your own shorthand. The second best practice is very important when making notes in lecture. It is to leave space when possible, as you never know when a professor may circle back to an idea. While for the most part information is presented in a linear fashion, people make mistakes, forget something important, or want to show a connection between 2 points. Finally, highlight certain areas to make them stand out. This notifies that something is really important. Here are some examples of very commonly used abbreviations. The symbol for therefore, which I referenced, can be seen here. There is one last idea I would like to leave you with, and that is how purpose impacts process. From the discussion on different note-taking methods, you probably gathered that there are 2 times we take notes: during class or lecture, or for self-study, which is prior to writing an assignment or reviewing for a test. With this, we must also understand that there are thus two different purposes of note-taking: to recall or to produce. When the purpose is to recall, we make note of information being given to us. The professor has done the work of organizing the information in a linear and organized fashion. However, when the purpose is to produce, we must rely on strategies to guide our own writing and extract the important information. One way this is done is through the method of SQ3R. SQ3R is a reading strategy that helps build a framework for better understanding information. These 5 steps can be organized into 3 areas: before, while, and after reading. Before you read, you survey the information, looking at headings, captions, and pictures to get an idea of what the information will be about. Similarly, you create questions based on the surveyed information to guide your reading, such as, what do I need to know about this topic? What do I already know? When you read, you look for answers to these questions. After you read, you recall what you read by making notes to summarize the information. Finally, you review what you have written and use the information for its intended purpose, to study for a test or as research to write an assignment. Thank you for watching our mini lesson on note-taking. Stay tuned for our next video in our series, Collaboration with Peers.